Reality is completely relative. Let me say that again. Reality is completely relative because what we perceive as reality, as what is real, is just the way that our mind is conceptualizing the happenings around us. Two things can be very true at once. That's not a new phenomenon. That's something that has been shared again and again and again. Two things can be absolutely true at once. And it is our decision on what we view as true that paints the perception of the world around us. Let me give an example because I feel like this is a lot easier to understand visually with the diagram. So in this example, let's say that we have two neighbors, right? We'll call the first one Sherry and the second one is Barry. Now, Sherry and Barry are both neighbors. They both live in very similar places. They both live in medium income households, in the same neighborhoods with the same experiences, in the same reality as we define it. And though they live in very similar environments, though everything they are seeing, everything that's happening is one and the same, they are experiencing the same events together in the same world, they still exist in two separate realities because they have two separate perspectives of their reality. For example, let's use the color blue, right? Now, Cherry absolutely despises blue. But Barry, as he is blue, that's his favorite color. So while blue exists in the same reality, while blue is the same thing, it produces very different things. For Cherry, blue is evil, it's bad, it's ugly. But for Barry, blue is very beautiful. Blue is wonderful, it is everything, it is light. And so because their perception of the same thing is different, the way it exists in their reality is different. The way they perceive it is different. Both of these are true. Blue is both ugly and beautiful. But at the same time, neither of them are true. For Cherry, it is. No, sorry, for Barry, it is. And for Cherry, it isn't. That doesn't mean that blue, like one thing exists in multiple ways, and the perception that you choose to look at it from changes the way that it is real, changes what is real. It is real that blue is ugly, and it is also real that blue is beautiful. It just depends on your perception. Another example might be, let's say they are having the best day ever. Both of them won a lottery ticket. Got a winning lottery ticket. Yippee! Isn't that everybody's dream? Like, that is incredible. But let's say Barry is a Christian name. And Cherry is non-religious. Barry might attribute winning the lottery to God. He might say, "Thank you, God, for this beautiful thing that you have given me." Meanwhile, Cherry might say that it is luck. Either way, there's still some force happening, something provided this for them, whether it is just the world, the happenings of reality, whether it is a figure of mystics It doesn't matter, because either way they both received this thing. And that's not to say that it couldn't be luck. It's not to say that it couldn't be God. To both of those people, that is what it is. Though they are experiencing the same things, they have two separate ways of explaining it. There's two separate ways of it being a fact. That doesn't make the fact that it came by God or that it came by luck less than, because in their minds that is the reality. The reality to them is that it came by luck. And while Cherry might look at Barry and say, you're an idiot for thinking that some mystical being gave this to you, Barry's still like, that is the truth. To Barry, that is reality. Meanwhile, to Cherry, it's not reality. Reality is that it's just a circumstance of life. That doesn't make one less true than the other. It simply means that in their perspectives, in their reality, this is the truth. And to the other one, they're false. But it doesn't change the, like the driving force behind it. There's two different labels for it. And you simply perceive the label that you provide as reality, as what is real. Another example would be that, say, Cherry likes to look at the world through rose-colored glasses, but Barry is a very sad person. They view things through blue glasses. They have a blue lens of a blue outlook on the world. So to Cherry, everything the world has might be love and light, but to Barry, life is very hard. Life is very sad. And I'd like to say that we get to pick the lenses through which we view the world. You can change your mind, you can change your perception, you get to choose that. That is what manifesting basically is saying, this is the perspective I want to live from. This is the reality that I want to live from. I want to live in a reality where I'm making $1 million a week. And so you just have to perceive you making $1 million per week for it to be real. Because what's real isn't what you see, it is how you conceptualize it, is how you perceive it. Because two people can perceive the same thing in two different ways. And though their perception, and though the thing exists the same way, it doesn't necessarily change the way that it exists, because it is perceived differently. The reality of it is changed. The vibration of it is changed. So Cherry looks at the world with love and light, right? That's her vibe. So she will perceive the happenings of the world with love. She may look outside and be like, oh, this is so beautiful. The sky's so blue today, the sun is shining, I see a bird over there, life is so beautiful. But Barry might look at that same image of the mountains, of the sky, and of the bird flying and be like, why can't I be the bird? I wish I could fly away from my problems. I wish. Why is this happening to me? Global warming's ending the world. AI is taking up all the water. Everything is so bad. And though they are looking at the same thing, because they conceptualize it two different ways, the way that they respond to reality is different. The way that they see reality, their perception of reality is different. So they are seeing the same image, but it exists very differently in their realities because their perception is different. Another example might be, maybe Cherry's got a little ego to her, right? Cherry's a little self-obsessed. She's a little bit maybe not narcissistic, but she feels very much that she's beautiful, right? Oh, I cannot spell today. And Barry has self-esteem issues. He feels very ugly in his existence. He doesn't feel happy. So, say both Barry and Cherry are going out for a walk, and I don't know where you guys live, but here people stare. People stare like crazy. Every time I look up, somebody's looking in my direction, And so if they're going on a walk and they're getting a lot of looks, people are constantly glancing at them, Cherry might think, oh, it's because I'm beautiful. Oh. It's because I am. I'm not going to explain the whole I am thing, but I will say Beyond Taylor has a beautiful description of why I am is so powerful, because I am is simply how you are perceiving the world. So I really recommend looking at Beyond Taylor's perception of the words I am and why they are so powerful. But in Barry's world, all these stares that he's getting are because, oh, they're looking at me because they're ugly, because they don't like me. And so though they are both just getting stares, though they are just both, perceiving other people looking at them, what they define as reality, what they define as the reason, is two different things. Cherry, being very confident in this instance, will see this as a beautiful thing, as, oh my gosh, it's because I am beauty. It's because I am beautiful. That is why all these people are looking at me. And so her reality of stares is simply a manifestation of her belief that she is beautiful. She didn't necessarily manifest, the stares and stuff, but because she perceives herself as beautiful, because she perceives this reality as it is, that is the reality that is reflected back to her, because your brain always thinks it's right. Your brain thinks it is the smartest thing, it's not looking for, it's looking for outside validation, yes, but it also is the thing that decides what that validation is and how that validation is manifesting in the 3D. But meanwhile, in Barry's reality, he's going, oh, I'm super ugly, nobody likes me, and so every stare he gets feels like a threat. Every stare manifests as a threat, manifests as a takedown, it manifests as a negative thing, because his perception of himself is negative. So his reality, when people stare at him, it is negative. But in Cherry's reality, when people stare at her, it is positive. So what I'm trying to say is, you get to decide how you perceive reality. You get to decide whether the stares are good or bad. And a lot of that comes from your perception of yourself, your perception of what is going on around you. So your beliefs are what shapes reality. Beliefs are so powerful. That's why everybody's so intense on, oh, believe in yourself, believe in yourself. And that is why, you've got, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but, we've got outside sources like things with social media and stuff, and they push the beliefs of constantly spreading negativity, right? They're constantly spreading, you hear a lot of fear mongering, you hear a lot of end of the world mongering, like, oh, it's all over, everything's so cooked, we're all so cooked. And for people who are constantly absorbing that information, who internalize it and believe that, they feel cooked. In their reality, the world is cooked, it is over. But someone who stays off of social media and just looks for the world and doesn't have outside influences telling them what to believe, their perception might be completely different. Their reality is, this place is still so beautiful, this is so great, like there's areas here, like it's very different. And though we live in the same world, because our perceptions are different, our reality is different, right? Cherry's reality, blue is ugly, but in Barry's reality, blue is beautiful. And both are true at the same time in their personal realities, right? So though they may have differing opinions, though all of this stuff may be different, it doesn't make it less true. It doesn't make it less real. That is still reality in their perspective. In Cherry's reality, Barry's an idiot. Barry's wrong on everything, and she's right on everything. And in Barry's reality, Cherry's an idiot and is wrong on everything, and Barry is correct in everything. That doesn't necessarily make one of them wrong. It doesn't make one of them right. It just simply is. And that's because we're all living in our own reality. If you're not new to manifestation, like you've heard this said before, that everybody's simply living in your reality. You are in your own reality because you are the one perceiving it. And because you control your perceptions, you control what you view as real. You control reality, because it doesn't have to be real to anybody else, because their perception is not beating the way that they see the world. And we know that the world is a mirror. So the world is just going to reflect your perception back to you, because your brain wants to be correct. There's psychological studies about this. There's plenty of science to back this up, in the fact that your brain will always perceive It's biased. Your brain is incredibly biased to what you believe is real because it wants to be right. And so it'll take everything around it and twist it so that way it is perceived as correct. So if I believe that I am very beautiful, my brain is going to look around the world and find things that feed that belief. It's going to take every stare and put it as, oh, I just must look so beautiful today. My hair must be so gorgeous today. That's why everybody's staring. If I believe blue is ugly, every time I see blue, I'm going to be like, ugh, ew. And that doesn't make me wrong, though people will differ from that opinion. It just means in my reality, in my perception, this is fact, this is true, this is real. But in Barry's reality, every time he sees blue, he gets very excited. And so, though they may be living in the same world, though we're all here on this earth together, because our perceptions differ, our realities differ. Another example, Jerry may come from a very low-income family. Meanwhile, Barry came from a very high-income family. So Jerry, who the most money her parents ever had in her life in their bank account at a time was maybe $1,000, that was reality for her. But Barry, he's used to his family having $1 million because he's incredibly lucky or whatever. And somehow they're both in medium income homes. We're just going middle ground to keep everything controlled. So to her, this house in the middle income is an upgrade. To her, this is everything. This is incredible. She went from trailer trash to having a beautiful home, to owning her own home. To her, this might be incredible. But to Barry, being middle class now is a downgrade. To Cherry, getting to put $500 in savings, maybe a big victory, maybe a huge accomplishment for her. But to Barry, because his perspective comes from, 500 is nothing, 500 should be what I spend, it's chump change to me. Putting $500 in savings may feel pathetic. Because in his perspective, 500 is a lot of money. But to Cherry, having that 500 is a big accomplishment. That doesn't necessarily make one right and one wrong. It just is because they're living in two different perceptions of reality. Because our lived experiences kind of shape how we perceive things. That is why, if you want to get into the whole political side of spiritualism, that's why you see a lot of people from the upper class, or a lot of messages from the upper class. That's why we have separations, right? I'm trying to find a good way to word this, but it's a little convoluted. It's kind of hard to understand. But that's why we all have separates. If you're poor, you live in this environment with these experiences, with this things, and with this. And if you're rich, you live with this and this and this. So that way you identify with those things. Because you identify with them, because you perceive those as I am used to $1 million. I am used to fancy events. I am used to galas. I am used to having whatever I want, because you perceive that, because your brain accepts that and is used to that. That is what the world will mirror back to you. Versus, the poor, I'm used to McDonald's. There it is with that I am again. I am used to McDonald's. I am used to low-income housing. I'm used to crappy jobs. The world will reflect back what you're used to, what you expect, what your brain is normal, what feels safe to you. Because that's how you perceive reality. Because that's how you perceive your life. Because that's how you perceive yourself. Because that is how you perceive I am. But you are everything because you perceive everything, because it is all from your perception, because you are the one seeing it, you are the one having those thoughts, because you are the one who decides what they are, because you get to make the decision of who you are and what you perceive with. We've all been in a car or whatever, we've all been driving around and been like, I never see any blue cars. And then all of a sudden, as you're continuing to drive down the road, there are blue cars everywhere, nonstop. Like, you just can't stop seeing blue cars. And that comes from, like, you've brought attention to the blue cars. Your mind has brought attention to blue cars. So now every time that you see a blue car, because you brought attention to it, your brain's going to send you a little ping and be like, oh, look, there's one. Oh, look, there's one. And all of a sudden, instead of seeing one blue car every 2 months, you're seeing 2 blue cars every 2 seconds. And you're like, what is happening? And that's not because reality has changed. It is because your perspective of reality has changed. That's not because all of a sudden all these blue cars were just spawning in just because you said something about them and they wanted to prove you wrong. That is because you are now looking for the blue cars, because every time you see a blue car, your brain alerts you and you draw your attention to it, because now the world is reflecting blue cars back to you. So when you apply that same kind of thought process to stuff like manifestation, I like to use money as just a go-to example because it's easy for people to conceptualize. So if I'm saying, I want more money, I want money, that reinforces the want, right? That reinforces the I don't have, because I'm like, I want, and not I have and I am. Now everybody starts with want. Want is how you know that it's meant to be yours, because you desire it. So why shouldn't you have it? Because this is your reality, because you can have anything. You want it because it's meant for you. I don't want to go to college, because I know that I'm not meant to go to college, because I don't align with that life path, at least where I'm at right now in my life. So I don't want it. But I want more money, because who doesn't want more money? And that's because I'm meant to have more money, because I align with more money. So want is the first step to knowing. That's what lets you know that you're meant to have this thing. If you want it, you're meant to have it. It is as simple as that. Obviously, there's lines. Don't be gross, don't be weird, don't want something that's going to come at the cost of exploiting somebody else, because that's just evil. That's not okay. Why would you want that? What's wrong with you? But right, if I say I want more money, I'm going to get more money, then I simply have to perceive more money. I have to create that to be my reality. Every time I see money come into my account, every time I see money laying on my desk, I have to be like, wow, I have money. I have money. I have money. I have money. And then the world will reflect money back to you, because in your mind, every time you see money now, it is an accomplishment. It is a good thing. And because you are everything, again, Beyonce Taylor does a fantastic job at explaining this much better than I'm going to in this video. So if you're a little confused on the I am and everything, because you are perceiving everything, because it all is coming from your mental, please check out Beyonce Taylor. She is fantastic. I love her so much. Because you are everything, because you are the one perceiving it. You simply have to perceive, I have more money, which is what you are doing by scripting, which is what the 369 method is, which is what envisioning, and vision boards are. It is simply you trying to get your brain to give you an alert, that ping you get whenever you see the blue cars. It's trying to get your brain to ping you every time you see money and saying, oh, look, I have money. Oh, look, I am money. Oh, look, I am rich. Because that's really all manifestation is getting your brain to alert you and to feel and to expect and to know and to perceive, I have XYZ, I have what I want, I have money. So the more that you can rewire your brain to alert you, like a lot of the times with manifestation, it's very easy to slide into, every time you see it, being like, why don't I have it yet? Why isn't it here? It's not in the 3D. Where is it yet? And it is in the 3D because you're perceiving it. Because anything that you can perceive exists, because you are the one creating it in your mind. If you can conjure it in your mind, you can conjure it in reality, because you are everything, because it's simply your perception that is creating things, because you get to decide how you perceive things. So a lot of the times I feel like it is very easy to fall into, every time you see the thing you want, you see somebody else having what you want, and you feel dissatisfied because you're like, I don't have it. But when you're seeing it exist in the world, it is simply a reminder of what is possible, of what you can do. Because why can they do more than you can do? You can do that too. You just have to perceive the fact that you can. Sorry, I keep having blue cars drive by my window now. It's what was I saying? Oh, yeah, when you see somebody else having what you want, don't be dissatisfied. Don't take it and turn and be like, I can't have it. Why do they get it and I don't? It is simply a reminder of what is possible for you. You can have it because they can have it, because they were able to conjure into their reality through their perception. And it's easier for some people, especially, you know, you get rich people who are used to having everything handed to them on a silver platter. And you wonder why. And that is because they expect it, because they believe they are. Because in their perception of reality, that is how reality works. That is their reality, is things come to them naturally and easily, and they receive easily. And so you simply just have to acknowledge the fact that that is possible for you. Everything is possible for you. You can have everything. Don't sit there in jealousy and upset, because it is simply your mind reminding you of what is possible, of what this world has to offer, of what your perception of what your reality could be, if you would accept it, if you would decide that that is what you want, if you start perceiving the world through that lens. Because the lens that you perceive things through shapes everything. It changes everything. If I, going back to just blue, you know, if I perceive blue as ugly, then blue is forever ugly. But if I perceive blue as beautiful, then blue is beautiful. It doesn't change what blue is, but it does. It doesn't change what blue is, but it changes what blue means. It changes what blue, how it presents itself in reality. It doesn't change blue physically, but it changes what blue is in the sense that it is now good or bad. That now every time you see blue, you feel good or bad. So when it comes to manifesting, that's what all these steps are to do. That's what everything is for, is to just allow you to perceive that reality, to perceive yourself living in that reality, to perceive that thing as what you are. I am rich. I am wealthy because I have money, because I have money sitting right there on my counter, vanity. I am rich because I have money in my bank account. I am rich. Money is easy for me. Versus if I sit there and was like, I've been manifesting money for so and so and so, and it's still not here, and it's still not here, and it's still not here. It's not that it's not presenting in the 3D. It's just that your perspective of the way it is presenting is negative. So the world is reflecting that negativity back to you. Breonna Taylor also does a fantastic job of explaining the way that the world reflects to you. I'm going to kind of steal from her a bit. But the way she explains it is like so, right? If you're, say we're living, right, we'll go back with Barry and Sherry. Okay, we've got Sherry up top and Barry down in the bottom. Now, I'm partial to women. I'm a very biased person, and I love women. I think we're fantastic. We are the bringers of life. We are everything. And I will happily go into that on another video if you would like, but God, we're everything. So I'm allowing Sherry to be the master manifester, and Barry, he just can't quite get what he wants. You know, say they both want money. That's the goal. Whose goal isn't money? Now, if Sherry simply, you know, there are so many paces from reaching that money. Pretend they're both even. We're doing this real quick. Now, if Sherry's vision only aligns with the money, right? That's all Sherry sees, is she decides to just focus on the money. She decides that I am the money and I have it. And the rest, that's up to luck, because she wasn't a Christian example. That's up to woo-woo. That's up to however I get there. That doesn't matter to me. But if Barry spends all his time focusing on each of these tiny little steps he has to take, and all of the space that he has to cover to reach there, all that he still has to do, the fact that it's not here yet because he needs, that is lack. That means Barry is only focusing on the lack. Now his vision is so full of other stuff, it completely distracts from the end goal. But Cherry, she doesn't even care about this stuff. She doesn't even see, hello? She doesn't even care about this stuff. She doesn't even see any of the steps. That's not to say don't have a plan. Obviously, it is like it's always good to have a plan, and if that's what you need to fully envision yourself having a thing, that is perfectly fine. I'm a Virgo too, so I do understand the importance of a plan and how that can also be used in manifestation. But if you spend all your time focusing on the plan and the next step and what is coming up, then you are simply focusing on the negative space that is around you, and so that negative space will simply be what is reflected back to you. Because that is all Barry is seeing. Barry is not seeing the money. Barry is seeing the negative space that is around him, the area that is set between him and his goal. But if Cherry simply sees the goal and it's just like, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna go after the goal, and she doesn't have time for the negative space, then the reality can't reflect the negative space back to her. All she sees is the money. All right, that's all she sees. She doesn't worry about anything else. She just goes, oh, money. But Barry's too worried about the steps to get the money to actually focus on what it's like to have it, to actually focus on achieving it and reaching it. It seems so much farther and so much harder for him because he's seeing all the little steps and all the lack that he does not have. So that is what is reflected back to him. That is what his reality is, because that is what his perspective is made up of. His perspective is made up of, I don't have it yet. I don't have it yet because of XYZ, and I need to do XYZ to get it. But in Cherry's perspective, all she sees is, I'm getting it. I have it. I'm getting it. I am it. It's mine. And so that is her reality, because that is how she is perceiving what is happening around her. And that is why your decision is so powerful. That is why your perception is so powerful and so important, because it quite literally shapes up everything. Everything. It changes everything. Money is still the same, but your ability to receive it and your response to it and how you feel about it is completely different. And, you know, if you're not new to manifestation, then you know that that's what manifestation really is. It's just, you know, it is feeling, it is having, it is perceiving. And that is why your perception quite literally shapes everything. Reality is relative to your perception. Whatever you perceive as real is real, because it is real to you. And that's all that matters in your reality. Because you don't have to convince anybody else that you are beautiful. You simply have to convince yourself. You don't have to convince anybody else that you are lucky. You don't have to convince anybody else that you are loved. You don't have to convince anybody else that you are rich. You simply have to convince yourself, because you don't hear their perceptions, because their perceptions aren't what makes you up. It is your perceptions that shape your reality, because you're looking at it through your mind. You're looking at the world through your perception. You know, I wish I had more words for it, because I feel like I'm just getting really repetitive here. But you know, maybe that's what's needed. Because it doesn't matter if Barry or if Cherry doesn't like blue. Blue is beautiful to Barry. And so in Barry's reality, blue is beautiful. It doesn't matter if Barry has a hard time with money, because to Cherry, money is easy. And so in Cherry's reality, money is easy, even though in Barry's, it isn't. You get to decide. You get to decide everything. So decide to do what is best for you. Decide that you get what you want. Because why shouldn't you? This is your reality. You should be living to your utmost joy and potential in everything that you want. So I decide that my life is easy, that I get everything I want with ease, that everything loves me, is addicted to me, and wants to come to me, that all my desires want me 7 times more. And that's all that matters, because nobody else can change my perspective on me. They can try, but it will only be successful if I let them succeed. I get to decide. You get to decide in your reality. Reality is relative to your perception, and you get to decide the lens from which you view the world. And that changes everything. So decide what's best for you. Decide that you get to live in the reality of all your wants and desires, because you do. Start perceiving your reality as for you. and things will be for you, because the world is a mirror. Because the world will reflect your beliefs back to you, because your brain will search for proof of your beliefs in everything it can find. And so it's real to you. And what else matters? Because you're living in your own reality. Because even if it's not real to them and it feels real to you, that's all that matters. Because you are the one who has to sit with those feelings and live with them. Okay, I'll see y'all around.